Hi, I'm Jen Murray, Marketing Director at the TechDiversity Foundation, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to the incredible mind behind the TechDiversity Academy's learning journey, Amna Ben Amara. So just a little bit about the Academy. The Academy is built on the education pillar of the TechDiversity Foundation. It starts in September and it's a practical, evidence-based, inclusive leadership program designed specifically for mid-level managers. It's endorsed by the Australian Computer Society, and we're extremely excited about it beginning in September. But bookings are open now, so organisations and individuals can secure their seats. So, as I said before, we're proud to have the mind behind the Academy here with us today. And just to give you a little bit of a background on Amna, she's a researcher, lecturer, and intercultural expert with 2 master's degrees in intercultural management and cultural studies. She's currently completing her PhD at the University of Tours in France and brings over 5 years of international teaching and research experience. From leading workshops across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia to contributing to global MOOCs, I might have to get you to explain what that one is, Amna, and being selected as a young leader at the International Conference of Cohesive Societies in Singapore. Amna's work is all about meaningful dialogue, cultural competence, and inclusive leadership. So we're delighted to have you on board here in the Academy, Amna. We'll dive straight in. I'll go straight to the first question. So very easy Q&A here, just to really understand a little bit about you and the Academy and the impact that it is going to have on organizations. So your academic and professional journey spans continents from France to Asia and the Middle East. So how has this global perspective shaped the way you've designed the learning experience for the TechDiversity Academy?
So thank you, Jen, for the generous introduction and for this very interesting question. Actually, my academic and professional journey has shaped not only what I teach, but also how I design learning experiences. So one of the key lessons I've learned is that communication and knowledge sharing often flow in one direction, that is from those, let's say, with more power, resources, or institutional authority towards those with less. So whether in academia, business, or even in the media, dominant voices often set the agenda. So this creates a kind of monologue where real lived experiences and grassroots perspectives are either ignored or added as an afterthought. So, in designing the TED Academy learning experience, I've tried to break this pattern because I believe effective learning and communication happen only when both sides are genuinely engaged. So, this means creating space for dialogue, not just between cultures, but also between people at different levels of influence or access. So it's mainly about moving from a top-down delivery of information to a more inclusive, participatory process that recognizes the value and the importance of everyday knowledge, of people's lived experiences, and not just formal expertise. So this approach also reflects my commitment to inclusive design. So when learners see their identities, stories, and challenges seen and reflected in the content, this builds engagement and trust. So it's not just about teaching intercultural communication as a theory, but also it's about modeling it as a practice. So, in a way, my global journey taught me that effective communication isn't about how loud or polished a message is, but about how deeply it listens and represents. So, that's what I've tried to bring to the TED Academy, an approach rooted in representation, critical reflection, and meaningful exchange and dialogue.
Super. And just touching on that point where you said that a learning experience where people see themselves, a reflection almost. We'll touch on the TechReflects study in a moment, but that's really what underpins the Academy as well, which is a research project that has been funded by the TechDiversity Academy, where we have the Australian tech workforce participating in a study. So again, it's like a mirror being held up to the participants to say, you know, this is, I mean, it's not just about diversity, equity, inclusion, it's the intersectionality level, the layers of that as well for individuals to really see themselves and how to use the academy to actually improve corporate culture and team culture as well. So thank you for that. We'll touch more on the TechReflects later anyway. So the TechDiversity Academy is built on the belief that representation and inclusive leadership drives innovation. So from your research and teaching experience, what are the biggest misconceptions about diversity in professional environments?
Yeah, that's a very good follow-up question to the first question, actually. So for me personally, one of the biggest misconceptions I've seen in professional environments is the belief that diversity alone is enough. So that simply having people from different backgrounds in the same space or in the same room means you've done diversity. But real diversity goes beyond visible characteristics like ethnicity, gender, or nationality. So it's also about perspectives, ways of thinking, values, communication styles. So I'll just give you a very simple yet powerful example. You can hire a wonderfully diverse team, people from different countries, speaking different languages, practicing different cultures, but you cannot force them to sit around the same table for coffee or lunch. Why? Simply because diversity without inclusion doesn't build connection. So, one of the biggest misconceptions about diversity is that it automatically leads to engagement or innovation. But that only happens when people feel safe, seen, and valued. And this brings me to another critical point. What must follow diversity is belonging. Because even if the numbers say diverse, if someone doesn't feel included, if they don't feel they belong to this particular environment, then this is very discouraging, I would say. And it impacts motivation and retention, of course. So that's one of the most serious weaknesses of traditional diversity, equity, and inclusion data, because it counts heads, not voices. And
Mm-hmm.
it shows who is in the room
Mm-hmm.
but says nothing about who is participating or who feels heard, seen, or represented. So, another misconception is that diversity is just about fairness or compliance. So, of course, while ethics matter, there is also a strong business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, research shows that inclusive teams always outperform, but that inclusion has to be intentional and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen. It needs efforts, intentional efforts. And at the TED Academy, and while designing these courses, I aimed to shift this thinking. So I've tried to focus on how leadership can drive not just fairness, but also innovation, collaboration, and performance. So, because if we don't understand the people around us,
Mm-hmm.
will not be able to grow and will not be able to perform in an efficient way, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you've touched on really is that intersectionality lens, right? That layering. It's not just you put people that maybe look different into the one room and then hope for the best. You've ticked your box. Obviously we're moving away from that, and that's exactly what the academy is built on, those principles. So the next question really is around the TechReflects study. So as we said previously, the modules are rooted in the data from that study. So how does integrating this research into the curriculum elevate the learning journey for participants? What makes it unique to other learning experiences out there?
Yeah, I was actually already discussing the limitations of traditional diversity, equity, and inclusion data, and I believe the Tech Diversity Report and the data-driven approach behind it is a crucial and very important step towards overcoming those gaps. So, in many organizations today, DEI data tends to focus on what's easy to measure,
Mhm,
like gender, age, or ethnicity. But those categories only scratch the surface, I would say. So they often miss deeper aspects of identity, like language, belief systems, cultural heritage, migration histories, or even someone's word view. And when those layers, as you said, are ignored, we create a disconnection, or a disparity between what's being measured and who people truly are. So
mhm,
that's why integrating the Tech Reflect study into the academy's modules truly elevates the learning journey. So the report doesn't just collect data, it reframes how we think about it.
mhm,
It reminds us that the tools we just use to gather data are not simply tools, but they are as important as the data itself.
mhm,
So, too often, traditional surveys reduce rich, multi-faced and identities, I would say, into predefined checkboxes. So, when people can't express who they are, uh, we not only lose insight, uh, but also we lose a direction. So here, it's not just about numbers; it's also about efficiency and decision making. So the Tech Diversity Report, in this regard, offers a different approach. So its data collection tools are thoughtful, inclusive, and equitable. So these tools recognize the complexity and the richness of a human experience. So here, complexity is seen not as an inconvenience, but as a strength. And I especially appreciated how it encourages us to ask, are we even asking the right question? So this became a central question I carried into the course design, because when we ask the right questions, the questions that reflect the reality of people's experiences, we create a learning environment that is more meaningful and human centered. And this approach transforms data into stories. So it shows us that data is not just about metrics, but it's also, or it's mainly about
mhm,
people. And that shift is very powerful. It makes the curriculum not only more accessible and inclusive, but also more effective and more
mhm,
reflective of of the complexity of human beings. So here, the report indeed moves from big mechanical efficiency driven strategies to small, intentional, human focused insights. And that's where true learning begins, I would say.
perfect. And with the Tech Reflect study, as you say, it does offer beyond the traditional metrics. It offers perspectives, the ability for individuals to express themselves. I mean, one of the big findings from the report when we did the analysis just last month was what we coined the influence gap, where we had, obviously there are women working within the tech workforce, but when we really dug deeper and we looked at their job roles and their job functions, a high percentage of women were working in supporting roles as opposed to decision making, being in the boardroom, being there where decisions happen. So we've coined this phrase as the influence gap in terms of, how can we solve that? The data is revealing that sort of information to us, which is really important. Like you said previously, just because we have different genders, people that look differently in one room, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are making those decisions or influencing innovation, having impact. So the power of the TechReflects data will be really important for this learning experience. So appreciate that. Thank you. So for potential participants or organizations considering the Academy, what transformation do you hope that they'll walk away with at the end of their learning journey?
Actually, my entire approach is built around transformative learning, which goes beyond simply acquiring knowledge, because I believe that real learning happens when people are challenged to reflect, to unlearn, and to rethink the assumptions they've long held about various cultural differences and the human interaction more generally. So throughout the modules, I invited the potential participants to engage critically with cultural diversity, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. So for this, I used interactive methods like real world case studies and self reflection activities to help learners move from awareness to action. And because transformative learning is about putting the learner at the center, valuing their lived experiences, sorry, and using that as a foundation to reassess knowledge. So this makes it a self-reflective journey. And through this self-reflective and critical journey, participants will explore their own biases and assumptions. They will examine how culture shapes their worldview and leave with new tools to lead with empathy, inclusion, and cultural awareness in their everyday work. So they will walk away actually not only more informed, but also more confident and intentional in how they communicate, how they collaborate, and how they lead across cultural boundaries. So, also, it is worth mentioning that this transformation that we aim to create is not only professional, it is also personal and ultimately human, I would say.
Super. And on the point there, in terms of, I suppose the influence, it's really aimed, excuse me, at mid-level managers. I suppose the misconception of a lot of these sort of courses is that it's for human resources, but really what we're trying to do with the academy is to equip mid-level managers to leverage tools for them to create an inclusive culture, as you say, a safe environment as well for people to thrive, as opposed to, I suppose, waiting for initiatives to happen within their organization. So the academy is really ideal for somebody who's very passionate about using inclusive leadership to get results, but also have a healthy and thriving team. So the human element of this is really important. So unless you've something else to say, I'll just close off. We really appreciate you giving us your time. If there's anything else you want to say, please do.
No, I just want to thank you, Jen, for this very interesting exchange, and I'm looking forward to the modules and to the participation of people who really believe in making change. I'm personally a strong believer in the power of human agency, because our social realities do not fall from heaven. So rather, they are constantly produced and reproduced through our everyday interactions. And it is our role as agents in these interactions that adds complexity to the human experience, and that add power and influence over the environments around us.
Absolutely. So if you're inspired, just talking to the audience here, if you're inspired by what you've heard today, now's the time to act. So the Tech Diversity Academy kicks off this September. It'll be delivered online, giving participants a flexible, interactive, and engaging online experience. So if you're a team leader, mid-level manager, or just an aspiring change maker, this academy is designed to equip you with the tools, the insights, and the confidence to lead inclusive and drive meaningful impact to your organization. So it'll take just 20 minutes a day to complete all three modules between September and November. And then you'll receive a digital certification from the Academy. But it's also worth noting that the Academy is endorsed by the Australian Computer Society. And thanks to our partner, Diversity Atlas, as well, who have allowed us the use of the platform for the TechReflects study.